Good morning. It's absolutely ages since I've been on here, and I've actually just realised that it isn't the morning, it's just the afternoon, but who cares? Anyway, I have not been on here for at least a month, and I've been very busy. That's the reason why I haven't been on here. I had the absolute delight of being involved in a friend's really brilliant film. I was given a small part to play, which was enormous fun. Being a complete drama queen, I really got into it. And as I say, I felt very honoured to be chosen, and the actual filming process was wonderful. It was very bonding. It was great fun. It was quite hard work because I've done a lot of acting on stage, but this was possibly only the second experience of filming. So great fun. I've also, since I was last on here, joined a local choir because another of my great loves is music, and I've always loved singing. I play various musical instruments, and it's been so lovely to be with other musicians, other singers, to rejoin the joys of music that can be sung in a choir. And this has taken me right back to secondary school when I was part of the choir, my first year at university, ditto, and it's just been really lovely. So yeah, I've had less time, which I think is probably very positive, to come on here and do videos that by and large people don't watch and then get into a really low state about that. I think I just have to remind myself that things are very ephemeral, aren't they? And a friend of mine who is also a writer gave me an insight into something which I find very worrying, but which I can see is true. And that is, apparently there is a new saying, and I can't remember what the acronym is, but it actually is short for too long to read or too long to listen to. And I suspect a lot of my videos on here are not being watched because they come into that category that people are looking at the number of minutes that they might have to give up from their daily lives to listen to somebody they don't know. And this is being put into the too long to listen to category. And as somebody who writes passionately and reads avidly, I just think it's really sad that in our world and in our society, the joy of a good book and a long book and something which is going to take you hours rather than seconds to read is somehow being pushed out or disparaged or put into this acronym, which is now used as an excuse for not actually listening to anybody. Isn't that sad? And I mean, you can take it further than the creativity. And I think this is also coming into, if you like, more social situations, in that a lot of people very much like to talk and confide, and it isn't always their joy. I'm trying to be very diplomatic about this, but to actually listen to the other person. And suddenly they've got an awful lot of things they need to do when the other person wants to confide in them. So I really would like to feel that we will eventually get through this rather sad, this is too long to listen to, this is too long to read, everything has to be just like that, and get back to enjoying watching plays, for example, and not walking out after 5 minutes, reading a whole book and getting into that wonderful, exciting, imaginative world, and not thinking, oh, right, 2 pages in, this is not for me, I want to go out and do something else. Watching a film, the whole thing. But anyway, I don't want to get too tedious about this. So I'm going to read a little bit of my book, Riding at the Gates of 60. And this is it's all about Virginia Woolf. And it's written from the perspective of Virginia Woolf. And this is just a little snippet of it. And I'll just explain. Vanessa was her older sister. Vita is the writer, Vita Sackville West. I reach for the food trays and devour tiny dainties of all kinds, Someone is singing. Someone else is clapping hands in time to an unseen melody. Roger hits the sideboard in rage. Vanessa is unashamedly repairing the hem of her dress in full view of everyone while carrying on a sideways conversation with Carrington and someone else. Lydia pushes us all back and starts to dance, frowning peevishly at the deeper conversationalists as she twists and turns. So that is just a tiny bit of the book I wrote all about Bloomsbury, the Bloomsbury Group, and which I was very young when I wrote it. And yeah, I think it's still very much, it's still kind of relevant, I think. Not because, many of us have heard of the Bloomsbury Group. In fact, I should think very few young people have, but something about the ethos of a group who back in the early parts of this century kind of kicked against the prick of convention and decided that they wanted to be doing things in a different way. So in a way, they were quite punk. They were the punk ahead of the punk time. They were sticking two fingers up at convention. And I really admired that. And I think that, that kind of attitude, that kind of fuck you, there's far too little of it around. And in a sense, that's what I'm doing in these videos. I'm saying, okay, if the convention now is that we don't listen to people and we don't listen to things for more than 2 seconds, well, fuck that. I'm going to go out and I'm going to make long videos which go on for more than 2 seconds, and I'm going to write novels. And if that is seen as rebellious, when I think it's actually just really creative, well, bugger that is all I can say. And as nobody watches my videos anyway, does it really matter? So I'm just going to read a tiny, tiny little bit of this book, which was the first prize-winning one. The effects of imminent full moon were felt in all corners of Pwllcoedwig. Dogs howled, sheep skittered crazily, villagers tossed and turned in beds suddenly turned hostile. Bloodied dreamscapes terrorized the vulnerable. Rachel, in her impulse-soaked room, felt clammy with the scent of salmon. The pink flesh seemed to lie luminously in her body, spreading and growing and glowing. She took it despite nausea, knowing she could not evade punishment of some kind. Down the road, an old man died, so quietly that the ripples preparing to spread out seemed grossly inappropriate. By his cooling side, his wife slept. Ellery Morgan woke early and hurried out of bed, lest another half-hour of sleep stole over her. If she did not deal with the furnace now, the whole morning would be cold. Richard had done it yesterday and the day before. It was her turn now. She put the kettle on and stood for a second, flexing her fingers under a stream of hot water before turning to the enormous brass structure which dominated the room. It resembled a huge Easter Island Maui statue, alien and powerful. Ellery opened the small door and carefully placed the daily libation of coal and paper inside. 5 matches, puny against the great gulps of wind coming down the sinuous neck, joined the coal. The 6th one crawled across the paper and stopped. Steam from the kettle filled the room. She tried 2 matches together, and miraculously the thing took off. Tiny red flames waved underneath the coal, pocking its side with colour. She was pleased. The warmth was satisfying. Smoke was already being swallowed, passed to the attic above. She shut the door and adjusted the dials on the side. It was wet. Through the net curtains, she could see the rocks opposite, dark and shiny with rain. She made the tea and took a cup next door to Richard. He was dead, cold and stiffening. She had an eerie sense of it straight away, as if something had gone out of the room. Richard will know what to do, she thought, and then, realizing what she had said, began to shake so violently that jets of tea shot over the bed and burned her legs. She did not touch him. His white face seemed eyeless, like a mask used in Greek tragedy, the gaping mouth testament to centuries of sorrow. And those, if you like, encapsulate for me why it really is worth listening and reading and giving books and other people and conversations more than 2 seconds, letting things develop, letting things grow into their pace, into their wonder, into the beauty of music and those sounds that are so evocative and so magical. And if you only listen to 2 notes, you miss so much. And if you just miss the title, if you just read the title, you could be missing a wonderful experience of a book. So there you have it. Okay, that's me for today. Bye.